Hello everyone. Welcome to this PM pre-read video 2. In this video, we would be covering about the components of the PM work guide, tailoring, and project management business documents. So let's start with project life cycle. A project life cycle is the series of phases the project passes through from its initiation to its closure. The life cycle provides the basic framework for managing the project. The life cycle can range from predictive to adaptive to hybrid. Predictive is more like a plan driven approach. It's also referred to a waterfall life cycle. And here, the product and deliverables are defined at the beginning, and any changes to scope are carefully managed. In the adaptive life cycle, which is also known as a change-driven approach or agile method, the product is developed over multiple iterations and the detailed scope is defined for each iteration only. In the hybrid, it is a combination of predictive and adaptive life cycle. More about the project life cycle. Here, cost and staffing levels are low at the start and move higher towards the end. Probability of successfully completing the project is low at the beginning and higher towards the end as the project continues. Stakeholder influence is high at the beginning and progressively lowers as the project continues. Do note that project life cycle is independent from the life cycle of the product which is produced or modified by the project. The project life cycle defines technical work performed in each phase and who is involved in each phase. Product life cycle is different from project life cycle where the product is produced by a project. Now let's look at project phases and development life cycle. The phases are generally sequential. They can be broken down by functional or partial objectives. Phases are generally time bounded with start and end or control point. They are marked by the completion of a deliverable. It could be tangible or a verifiable product. Review of deliverables and approval or denial are known as phase exits, stage gates, or kill points. Phases are collated into the project life cycle. Phase-to-phase relationship, it could be sequential, where it starts only when the previous phase is completed. It could be an overlapping relationship, where a phase starts before completion of the previous one. It could be overlapping, where it's essentially a schedule compression technique, which is known as fast tracking. Note that process groups are not the same as project phases. Project phase names could be like, some examples are like design phase, prototype phase, build phase, test phase, lessons learned phase, and so on. And project gate is an activity which is done at the end of a phase to compare the project progress against the work plan and the project documents. Usually, the outcome of this activity is to continue or not. Development life cycle. Here it is one or more phases which are associated in the development of product or service. The project manager and the team identify the best life cycle for each project. The development life cycle can utilize various models: predictive, iterative, incremental, adaptive, or hybrid. Now let's look at project management processes. Project management processes are the executed or the will be executed activities. They are logically connected and linked. And usually the processes produce one or more outputs, and the output could be deliverable or input to the other process. So a process is a set of interrelated actions and activities performed to achieve a pre-specified product, result, or service. Now, each process is characterized by its inputs, the tools and techniques that can be applied, and the resulting outputs. In order for a project to be successful, the project team must select appropriate processes required to meet the project objectives. They must use a defined approach that can be adopted to meet requirements. They should comply with requirements to meet stakeholder needs and expectations. They should establish and maintain appropriate communication and engagement with stakeholders, and balancing the competing constraints. The project processes are performed by the project team, and they are generally falling into one of three major categories. Processes used once or at predefined points in the project. Example could be a project charter. Then processes that are performed periodically as needed. Example, acquire resources. And then processes that are performed continuously. Example, define activities. Now, common project management processes and their interactions. Monitoring and control process group interacts with the other process groups. Project management process groups are linked by the outputs that are produced. Process groups are overlapping activities that occur throughout the project. An output of one process generally becomes an input to another process or is a deliverable of the project, sub-project, or phase. And the deliverables of the sub-project or project level may be called as incremental deliverables. The planning process group provides the executing process group with project management plan and the project documents. And project management plan and project documents are always revisited and updated through the project. If the project is divided into phases, the process groups interact with each phase. The process groups are not project life cycle phases. So now let us look at the project management process groups. Project management is accomplished through the appropriate application and integration of the 49 logically grouped project management processes, comprising the 5 process groups. They are initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and lastly, closing. Let's understand about the initiating process group. It defines and authorizes the project. It's often done external to the project scope of control. It facilitates formal authorization to start a new project. In this process group, the project manager gets assigned. Funding and approval happens external to project boundaries. And many large or complex projects are divided into phases and repeating it for each subsequent phases. Then let's look at the planning process group. It defines and refines the objectives, plan the course of action required to attain the objective, and scope that the project was undertaken to address. It develops the project management plan and refines the project scope, the project costs, and the project schedule. It is updated and refined throughout the execution process group by rolling wave planning. And all the necessary stakeholders are involved in this planning process group. Now let's look at the execution process group. Here, the majority of the project budget will be spent in performing executing process group. It integrates the people and other resources to carry out the project management plan. And during the project execution, results may require planning updates and rebaselining. Now, the monitoring and controlling process group. The main benefit of this process group is that the project performance is measured and analyzed at regular intervals. Monitoring the ongoing project activities against the project management plan and the project performance measurement baseline. It's about influencing the factors that could circumvent change control or configuration management so that only approved changes are implemented. It's about controlling changes and recommending corrective or preventing action in anticipation of possible problems. This process group not only monitors and controls the work being done, but also monitors and controls the entire project effort. And lastly, let's look at the closing process group. This formalizes the acceptance of the project or the phase deliverable. It obtains acceptance by the customer or the sponsor to formally close the project or the phase. It conducts post-project or phase end review. It records the impacts of tailoring to any process, documents the lessons learned, applies appropriate updates to organization process assets, archives all relevant project documents in the PMIS to be used as historical data, closes out all the procurement activities, performs the team members' assessments, and releases the project resources. So now let us look at the project management knowledge areas. The project processes are categorized by knowledge areas, and the PMBOK guide lists, describes, and explains 10 knowledge areas. They are project integration management, project scope management, project schedule management, cost management, quality management, resource management, communication management, risk management, procurement management, and lastly, the stakeholders management. Each knowledge area contains more than one process to make the total 49 processes. The knowledge areas simply direct you how to use the 49 processes. Therefore, the 49 processes are the connectors between the 5 process groups and the 10 knowledge areas. So this table illustrates the connection between the knowledge area and the process groups and lists out all the 49 processes. So we have project integration management under the process groups. initiating process, initiating, the process is develop the project charter. Then we have the develop project management plan. We have the direct and manage project work, manage project knowledge areas, then monitor and control the project group, perform integrated change control, and finally close project or the phase. Similarly, you can see that there are under project scope management, there are 4 processes under the planning process group, which is plan, scope management, collect requirements, define scope, and create the WBS. WBS means work breakdown structures. And there are 2 processes under monitoring and control process group, namely validate scope, control scope. Under the project schedule management knowledge area, we have 5 processes under the planning process group. That is plan the schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity durations, and develop the schedule. Under the monitoring and control process group, there is 1 process, which is control schedule. Then we have the project cost management, where there are 3 processes under planning process group, which is plan cost management, estimate costs, and determine budget. Under the monitoring and control process group, we have control costs. Then we have project resource management. Under this, we have planning process group, 2 processes, which is plan resource management, estimate activity resources. Under the executing process group, we have 3 processes, which is acquire resources, develop team, manage team. And under monitoring and controlling process group, we have 1 process, which is control resources. Under the project communication management, we have 1 process under planning process group, which is plan communication management. Then we have under the executing process group, manage communications. And under monitoring and control process group, we have monitor communications. Under project risk management, there are 5 processes under the planning process group. Plan risk management, identify risks, perform qualitative analysis, risk analysis, perform quantitative risk analysis, and plan risk responses. Under executing process group, we have implement risk responses. And then under monitoring and control process group, we have monitor risks. Under the project procurement management knowledge area, there are 3 processes. 1 is plan procurement management, then conduct procurements, and control procurements. Under project stakeholder management, there are 4 processes in total. 1 is identify stakeholders, plan stakeholder engagement, manage stakeholder engagement, and monitor stakeholder engagement. Now let's look at tools and techniques. Each one of the 49 processes has inputs and outputs, and we use the tools and techniques over our inputs to the outputs. Usually the output from one process is an input to another process. Now the tools and techniques in the PMBOK guide are grouped under 5 categories: data gathering, data analysis, communication skills, decision making, interpersonal, and team skills. Each category has a lot of tools and techniques which are detailed in a different document. Project information is the project data which are continuously collected and analyzed during the dynamic context of the project execution. The project team should use appropriate terminologies. Work performance data, which is about observations and measurements identified during activities performed to carry out the project work, work performance information, and work performance reports. Now let's look at the tailoring and project business documents. Tailoring, there is no single project management methodology which can be applied to all projects at all the time. Note that the PMBOK guide is not a methodology. The guide is about the standard for project management and recommended references for tailoring. So tailoring is very important as every project is unique and not every process, tool, or technique required or is applicable for every project. Now let's look at project business documents. There are basically two of them, which is project business case, which is a documented economic feasibility study used to establish the validity of the benefits of a selected component lacking sufficient definition, and that is used as a basis for the authorization of further project management activities. Project benefits management plan. This is the documented explanation defining the processes for creating, maximizing, and sustaining the benefits provided by a project. Now we have project success measures and business value. Project success measures are measurable and clearly the project objectives should be documented and should answer the three questions. What does success look like? How will success be measured? What factors may impact success? The project may meet the scope, schedule, and budget, but is still not successful from the business viewpoint. So therefore, it's very important that project success measures should answer those three questions. Now let's look at business values. Business value is defined as the entire value of the business, the total sum of all tangible and intangible elements. Business value is a concept that is unique to each organization. And all organizations focus on attaining business value for their activities. And successful business value realization begins with the comprehensive strategic planning and management. With this, we come to the end of this PM pre-read video number 2. In the next video, which is PM pre-read 3, we will be covering the following topics. Thank you.